Where do you find God? Almost sounds like a loaded question, doesn't it? I mean, if God was someone you could find, wouldn't everyone be out searching? Well, rather than looking for something elusive, like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, I reckon it's more about learning to recognise the way God is already present to us in our everyday lives. I'm Lizzie Oakes, and this is Where Do You Find God? My guest on the podcast today is Nick Holder. Now, Nick is an editor-director, works with me here at Rhema Media. He's been working here for around 14 years or so. Last year, Nick was admitted to hospital because of issues to do with his heart and gallbladder. He stayed in hospital for a number of months, and during that time, Nick nearly died on 3 separate occasions. Thankfully, Nick pulled through. Many people were praying, us here at Rhema Media, and I'm sure plenty of others as well of his friends and family. And so he has pulled through, although he still has a number of challenges with his health, including now having to have dialysis 3 nights a week. Nick Holder, welcome to Where Do You Find God?
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on because... this is quite a big deal having this conversation with you, and I appreciate you be willing to have it with me. So my understanding is that you were travelling overseas a few years ago on a work trip, 10 plus years ago, and you ended up in hospital. Is that when you first discovered that you had underlying heart issues?
Yeah, I knew I was having a few issues before, like they think I was diabetic and stuff like that, but they didn't know why. And so I went over on this trip and classically got sick in India. So no one really thought too much of it at the time, but it was just really bad.
It was more than a stomach upset.
Yeah, so it got worse and worse, and because I was doing a documentary about the health system in India, and I got to see firsthand how terrible it was on the other side of that line. So they managed to sneak me on the airplane, gave me some uppers, as they do, but they didn't know what else to do. But when I got to Singapore, I was way worse. I went from the worst medical system perhaps to the best.
Oh, wow.
And to the best hospital and the best room in the best hospital because I had a health insurance. They threw every single test under the sun at me. And they discovered I had an enlarged heart. So that wasn't directly why I had what I had. I think I had an infection of the chest. But they've discovered I had a bunch of other things underlying.
So that led to a number of health challenges over the years, but was last year the worst?
I think it was the worst, yes.
I mean, the fact that you nearly died 3 times.
Yeah, that sort of underlined it. I had, they trace it back because I had cancer when I was a kid, about 4, Wilms tumor, which is cancer of the kidney. So I had 1 kidney removed. But the old-fashioned radiotherapy and chemotherapy was pretty rough in those days. Radiation therapy was more like a shotgun. Nowadays, it's more like a laser, really targeted. But then it was, just hit your whole body. So it wrecked a whole bunch of my organs at the time, my heart and liver and a bunch of other organs. It wasn't until about 10 years ago when I went on this trip that the actual evidence of prolonged damage over the years came to the surface, yeah.
Nick, in Acts chapter 17, verse 27, it says, God intended that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. So my question for you today, Nick, is where do you find God?
I've always felt like he has seen me throughout my life, no matter if I feel closer or further away from him. I always felt that I always believed in him and felt he was there. But I must admit, through this suffering, I have drawn a lot closer to him, both in dependence and in a more practical way, just even though I feel like I've gone through a bit of a Job-esque storyline, everything he says about himself is true, and he continues to prove that to me.
Yeah, now, when you snuck up on us, I feel like some point last year we were having some sort of lunch upstairs. I can't remember what it was. We were celebrating something.
Yeah.
And you appeared.
Yes.
And the room exploded, 60 odd people just so excited to see you. And then you actually did stand up and you said that very line. You actually said God's who he says he is.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Well, he describes himself quite a bit in the Bible about who he is and what he likes and dislikes and what he does and doesn't do. When you really trust in God, you tend to get an accelerated view of who he is because a lot of things get put to the test.
Yeah. So who is he to you and all that you've suffered and are continuing to deal with?
Like he says that he has a plan for us for good things, not for bad things. So all of that seems true to me, and he's put things in my life that he knew I needed for times, the worst times. You know, when you see the big picture, things make more sense. And that also helps because you go through these times of suffering where it doesn't make sense. But other times in your life, after a period of time, those times make sense, if that makes sense in itself.
Looking back in hindsight.
So that helps you through the times where it doesn't make sense because, okay, God's in control. You hold on to those things that you know are true. So God's in control. God loves me. He wants the best for me. This part doesn't make sense. Okay, it will make sense later at one point, either this side of life or not.
So this is how you hold it in balance.
Yeah, because some things he's proven to you and then you go, okay, I'm going to hold on to that because I've seen him matching his own words. And then other times, okay, I haven't seen that being fulfilled in my life, but I read about it. I believe in the word, so I'm holding on to that as being true to get me through it. And any sort of love relationship where you never understand completely, but you trust, you love that person and you know that they want the best for you.
So how is it with your relationship with God? And, you know, it's great that you lived, we all celebrated that, but your quality of life is not 100%, although you just mentioned to me before that you're feeling a bit stronger, you've been going to a certain gym.
But it's not just that time, it's just the times, it's all the peripheral things, the consequences of afterwards that really are the hard part. Like, you know, losing a couple of organs that help you digest food. That's an ongoing day-to-day problem.
Okay.
That I've only really just got through because you have to take a handful of painkillers every time you have a meal.
Really?
And you can't absorb any energy out of the food.
You know, where you often eat is near where I sit, and you always seem to have like piles of food.
Yeah, well, I'm told to eat as much as I can because I've been losing weight. I don't know why. But now they've discovered I've got pancreas problems because I've lost the bile duct or whatever that. So that helps with large amounts of fats and stuff like that, absorb fats. But the pancreas also helps absorb fats as well. So now I've lost 2 organs that do that job. I've discovered a pill, Creon, that helps my body absorb fat material out of any food I eat rather than freaking out.
Yeah. Have you experienced something of God's comfort in this process, Nick?
Comfort is in holding on to the promises that I know he wants the best for me. He provided a wife for me that's awesome. And
she is awesome, your wife. Yay, Darwin.
Yeah. That's been such a buffer in my life. So I get to see his love demonstrated through other people just about every day. That helps me stay positive, you know.
Yeah. I feel like your attitude's very kind of, you're just quite accepting of where you're at.
That's the sort of thing when you go to hospital, one of the first things they abstract from your body is pride in any long-time hospital. So I've had that removed a long time ago in my hospital visits, and I feel like I don't have a lot of control. Throughout my life, I've sort of learned that lesson.
We think we have control, but ultimately we don't.
And it's easier to learn from my perspective because I've had so much happen to me, but it must be a hard lesson for others to learn because they seem to have so much control over their lives, you know. So sometimes you're jealous about that, and sometimes you realize that, well, that's an illusion, perhaps, but that you learn later. And usually you learn that later in life, I think. Yeah. I've learned it a little bit earlier. because a lot of the time, like I think I said before, that I feel like it's a bit of a Job storyline. He didn't understand, so
Job didn't understand.
Yeah, I think he knew not to complain, because you often see people shake their fist at the sky when something goes wrong. But
You haven't done that?
no, well, that's what I've tried. I've tried not to do that, and I think I've been successful, because it's a misplaced anger type of thing. Things go wrong. It's a world that one thing you learn when you're in hospital, you think you're bad, but there's people around you that are way worse.
What do you think Jesus would understand about your suffering?
He understands suffering, so he knows the isolation that pain can bring. You're so focused on pain, and it's hard to think about anything else when you go through that. And it's really stagnates your life while you're in pain, constant pain.
Yeah.
And it isolates you a little bit, because no one can understand. And you know that people you can't explain. How do you put that into words? I mean, your wife sees you go through pain, so she's the person who understands you the most.
Yes.
But then you remember that it's quite a good thing to hold on to. You know that Jesus understands it most of all, because he understands where your neurons are firing, and he's been through it himself. So
yeah,
it's amazing to me that he was able to think clearly through the pain and see the big picture still while he's going through it.
Have you ever invited him into the pain?
I've certainly, when you're in the foxhole, when the bombs are blowing up around you, I don't know if you're inviting Jesus in there, but you're certainly begging, a lot of begging, praying going on.
Yeah.
You just say his name over and over again at the end when you can't really think. So is that inviting him into the pain? I guess so.
And was there an awareness of him being there with you? Or has there been?
Well, sometimes you get the sense, and you get either just in yourself that it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. Like there was a couple of times like that. I just had that feeling.
So reassurance.
Just a reassurance that you're not alone. And you hear other people say that as well.
When they're going through life and death situations?
Yeah. So, but when they're not there and when you're by yourself, I have had those moments where I just felt I wasn't alone in the situation. I was seen.
Yeah. Yeah, which is interesting, because at the beginning of our conversation, you said about growing up and feeling a sense of being seen by God, and now you're talking about, if not the hardest, one of the hardest times in your life, being seen. So what is it for you, Nick, about being seen by God?
Even though I've grown up, had a wonderful family and grown up sort of in a nice situation, it's I've always had that feeling, a little bit lonely feeling, that people tend not to see me. And so it's nice to have that feeling that they may not see you, but I see you sentence in your mind.
God sees you.
Yeah.
And you matter to him.
What's that, sorry?
And you matter to him.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of hand in hand, that he sees me and cares for me. He not only sees but understands is quite big as well. So you really hold on to that. People all have different walks and stuff like that, and you still see people who are, you think, living closer to God, and they just had one of my close friends who I consider like a dad, second dad to me, who very close to the Lord and got stomach cancer, horrible death and pain, and died just the other week. And so that happens as well. We live in that world. That's the world we live in. Mm. And it's just sad to see people lose their faith in times like that. I think we just have to prepare ourselves that we're all going to have a moment where we face that. And I think we have to prepare our minds and hearts for those moments, that we hold on to our faith the most.
No matter what?
No matter what, I think. I think so, because the no matter what will happen. I think it's guaranteed to, in fact.
Mm.
And, yeah.
Nick Holder, thank you for joining me today on Where Do You Find God? Tune in every Wednesday afternoon at 4:30 on Sanctuary, or listen and subscribe via your favourite podcast platform, and give us a review so others can find us.